Look, the TakeOver era is the best era.
This isn't a hot take hangout. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever type of day you are watching. This is the Big Roll Wrestling YouTube channel, where today we are doing the series that I have rightfully titled our Mount RushFour.
Because every channel has a 5, an 8, a 10, a 12, but only we have a 4.
Because, you know, when you hit a victory roll, you count to 4. I don't know. We're still trying to figure it out.
I have till 4.
I'm going to handle the business now. If you like what you see today, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that fun stuff. We're trying to make more videos. We're trying to figure out our release schedule. Even though we have a definite one, we're trying to change it again. But today, for our Mount RushFour, we are talking none other than NXT Superstars and the whole 9 yards. We are not just talking black and gold era, though we are lovers of the black and gold era, therefore most of our stuff will be. Also, I am the one and only storyteller, Alex Braddock. Joining me as always.
I am just some camera guy, Dylan Gilbert.
But you're a great camera guy.
That's true. So apparently I'm pretty good. So
you're just a great camera guy.
It's fair. That's
but
fair.
You are a good camera guy. Anyway, so we've set criteria with our Mount RushFours. We've done one previously, matches of 2024. If I can remember to put the link, it'll be there or there. I can't remember with this camera
Maybe
angle.
here, maybe there.
Who knows? But today we are setting the criteria of having one female, because most of the time we can be blinded by the amount of talent. So we have set the criteria of one female, and we have go ahead and putting a single spot to a tag team.
And the other piece of criteria being that this is not going to be based on what they did after. This is based on the strength of their NXT run.
Yes.
Who is your top 4 NXT wrestlers?
Yes. Because we could sit there and say...
I guess technically 5 or 6, depending on
we could technically say Big E and Seth Rollins. But they did a good bit in NXT. But at the same time, they had way better runs outside of NXT.
Way better.
So, Dylan, do you want to go ahead and hit us with our honorable mentions?
So
we're going to start with honorable mentions today.
We also pitched having a match to go back and look to. If you know this person but you can't think of a match, whatever, go look at these matches.
Yes.
I think we could probably sit here and just do like one of these videos where it's like who will tap last, just going back and forth NXT talent.
Yes.
So there's going to be people left off this list, but the two I'm putting in my honorable mentions are Pete Dunne.
Ooh.
So the match I'm specifically saying go back and watch is Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate for the NXT UK Championship at TakeOver Chicago. That is the match that entirely opened my eyes to the Brit Rest scene, and I did such a deep dive after that match.
Is that number 2 or 3 for them?
I think it's 2 in the company because it's the one where Pete Dunne wins the title.
Okay. Yep.
And I mean the joint manipulation, the brutality without ever really coming across. There's no like extreme anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was just brutal.
Absolutely.
And I think fantastic and technical. Yep. And my other one's gonna shock, but if we would have had 3, even 4, this guy would have been like not even a thought. He's definitely on the list. But because I had to narrow to 2 single male competitors, Finn Balor is in my honorable mention category and has bounced in and out of my second spot for about an hour and a half today.
Yes.
Balor versus Joe, TakeOver Dallas, the one where he busts Samoa Joe open and they have to spend half the match working around Joe having this slice under the eye. In the PG era, they don't like that.
PG era where they've contemplated cutting to black and white graphics so that the blood isn't shown. Yeah.
So he's bleeding profusely and just goes back to the, I believe, Predator quote. Paul, if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. But if it bleeds, we can kill it. And Balor could not conquer that mountain so many times. And he busts Joe open and just goes in for blood. And it's just fantastic match.
Solid match. That whole feud is solid.
Oh, that whole feud is fantastic.
Maybe not the first time, but the very few times where a title is changed at a house show.
Yeah.
And confuses everyone on TV.
Oh yeah, NXT was a great time back in the day.
Oh yeah, it was great. I'm not gonna say any honorable mentions because I think my honorable mentions are on his list, so we're not gonna talk about it. So I think we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're going to do first male competitor. We're going to do tag teams, then our female, then the second male competitor. Kind of keep a flow to it, kind of change up the scene, and we'll see what we go with. Okay.
So when you say first, you mean our number one goes first?
I feel like it's a Mount RushFour, so it's just objectively numbered. It's just numbered because our bullet points are numbers.
Cool. Then I'll swap and I'll save my my number one for last.
Or the surprise pick? Okay.
It's not a surprise pick if you know me, but
that's fine.
I'll rant longer on that one.
Yeah, you will. It's okay. I'll go ahead and hit my least surprising hit, and it's probably going to be a surprise to you because now that I'm thinking about it, he didn't do a whole lot, but I know what match I'm plugging. My first pick is Shinsuke Nakamura. Solid matches. You can question his championship run.
You can, but
why would you? The match I'm going to point you to is Takeover Dallas.
So it
Sami
is.
Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
Dude, so it's funny you say that because my male number 2 is Sami Zayn, and I pointed to the same match.
As you should have, though.
Because it's perfect. It was one of those, like, the Fight Forever chant came out of that match. It was one of the few times where I'm, like, legitimate, like, just cancel anything after this. Run as long as you need to. Let these guys go until one can't anymore.
And if I remember correctly, they had the tag team championship match after that match.
After that.
Yep. And that's a classic. I won't talk about it because it may get brought up here in the future.
Who knows?
So anyway, so Shinsuke Nakamura for me, you can sit there and point back to him and Joe. I believe him and Bobby went at it once or twice. But the match to point to is him and Sami. Sami coming from the main roster back to NXT to immediately turn around and do a 6 or 8 man ladder match the next night at Mania.
Yep.
But came off of the main roster back to NXT, and William Regal was like, "Don't worry about it. I got talent for you," and hands him Nakamura the chance back for Fight Forever, the chance of Olay, and then everyone singing Shinsuke's new theme song, even though it had been out on iTunes for like 2 days prior.
2 to 3 days.
Yeah, it was nuts. Shinsuke Nakamura is my NXT pick for number 1.
So the other participant in that match, Sami Zayn, I think had about as perfect an NXT run as I've ever seen. And like he's finally making his way back around to prominence, like with the bloodline stuff in the last couple of years, but there was just something about the underdog from the underground when he was just really clicking, and you could put him in there with anybody and he can go 15 minutes and be believable. And he could sell like nobody else. I mean, when he was getting beaten down, there was no more believable person in wrestling that he was just being killed in that ring.
Yeah.
And when he would fire up and fight back, man, his offense is always so crisp that he doesn't do it enough now, but that torpedo DDT where he would dive through the corner of the ropes, hook the person, and spin through the DDT was phenomenal. I mean, he was truly like that underdog that everybody pulled for.
Don't quote me. I think he cut himself one time
and then
doing that and was like, "Nah, I'm gonna call it." Yeah, no, dude. Sammy's a good pull. Sammy's a good pull on that one, just because you have way too many classics with Sammy. Sammy was practically from the start. I believe he's in a fatal 4-way with Tyson Kidd, Tyler Breeze, and Cesaro.
Yeah, I think he was one of the first big signings in NXT.
Absolutely.
Because I remember like the graphic coming up and it looked like the Generico mask, and then like it changed into the SZ.
Yep.
And I remember like at that point I was like, who in the world is this person? And through him and another wrestler that might get brought up later, wide open.
Might?
Yeah, might.
Anyway, that's our number 1 picks. Now moving on to our tag teams. Dylan and I went first, so I'll have you go first because I think I know your pick.
I'm pretty positive.
If I know your pick, I probably know my pick, so it's fine. So we're going to have Dylan go first. Tag team, top tag team of NXT, whatever. What you got?
So, let me verify my match here. Yep, it is. DIY for so many reasons. I mean, the stuff they did together was fantastic.
Yep.
But once Gargano and Ciampa split, they had probably, if it's not my first favorite feud, it's my second in NXT history.
Yes.
But I mean, the matches they had together were unreal. I mean, that's all the way from PWG through.
Yeah.
The matches they had together were unreal. And if I had to point to one match, DIY, Authors of Pain, NXT Tag Title match, and a ladder match at TakeOver Chicago.
Wow.
And we will say it because if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you are about to.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely encapsulates everything that I love about DIY before and after.
Yep.
It shows how great they were together.
Yeah.
And one of the most gut-wrenching turns ever. The lower third swerve started with that when that graphic
I don't know if that's the first, but that is the first huge lower third swerve.
The second it pops up and Ciampa's got his arm around Gargano,
yep,
and he just turns and sends him into that Titantron.
Yep.
My whole body tensed up. I was just like, that was not supposed to happen.
Right.
And you're watching it, and I'm just silent.
Yep.
Like just watching it with my jaw on the floor. A perfect wrestling moment.
Absolutely.
So
I was going to put DIY on my list. I figured this is where it was going to go, so I didn't. But what I will say is, let's go ahead, because we talked. They're not. They are on the list, but they're not technically on the list. If we could say greatest NXT feud, we'd probably put that one in.
100%.
So, if we had to put one of their matches against each other, which match would you choose?
Man.
I'm gonna go with I believe it was a last man standing when they pulled the apron or the mat off and Ciampa did that one last DDT. I'm pretty sure handcuffed.
Yes.
Did a DDT on the wood to finish it.
The one that sticks out in my head the most is TakeOver New Orleans.
Yep.
Just watching this happen and knowing that it was like an hour down the road, and I'm like, I should be in that building at this moment. But I mean, I'm 90% sure that is the one where he peels up the padding on the outside.
Yep.
That exposes the concrete underneath. And I think like as a wrestling fan now, like that kind of stuff's like, yeah, you know, it's under there. But that like one of the first times seeing somebody peel that padding up, it really does have that like, oh my God, that is padding and that's concrete underneath it.
Yeah.
And you know, they set up a couple spots on that concrete. There's like a big float over backdrop onto it. And it's gnarly. It's gnarly.
It's gnarly.
So that's the one that sticks out to me. But man, there's no wrong answers in that feud.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Don't worry, we're gonna fix the whole NXT New Orleans thing come next year when it comes to New Orleans Mania. Hopefully,
Calling it now.
Crossed. It's pretty much confirmed. Anyway, so my tag team that I'm going to choose. It's none other than the Revival. Let's be real. There is one other choice that it could be, and it's the reason why I'm choosing that match over their match with DIY.
Okay.
It is American Alpha versus the Revival at TakeOver Dallas.
Yeah.
I fell in love with tag team wrestling with that match. I watched that match and went, I want to be a tag team wrestler.
That was, I mean...
I've done it now. We'll see if it happens again. But I've done it once. So, but no, the Revival, I mean, we can talk about FTR and AEW. Like, we're not necessarily talking, but we know that they are top tag team tier in the world. And they got their start in NXT because they both hooked up with each other and were like, you like tag team wrestling? Great. Let's go shred it up in NXT. You have... American Alpha, DIY, Authors of Pain. I'm pretty sure there was a triple threat with them, with the Revival, DIY, and Authors of Pain. The list can keep going on if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Just absolute clinics. And the fact that they bring in old school tactics into the modern tag team.
Well, and especially with NXT Black and Gold era at that point, especially, like, there were so many of these tag teams that were coming out of, like, Ring of Honor and PWG and all of these other places where you were blending all these styles, and they are a perfect foil for, like, if they're doing, you know, somebody's doing, like, flippy high fly offense, they can catch it and turn it around on you so quickly.
Absolutely.
And they'll make you look like $1 million right before they knock your teeth out.
No flips, just fists.
Perfect.
Wish I could have got me a t-shirt. But that's our tag teams. Moving on to spot number 3. I'm going to keep putting quotations. Our female NXT wrestlers. I'm going to have you go first because I think mine's going to be a bit of a surprise.
Okay, so
But yeah, go ahead and hit me.
Mine could have been any one of the four. There's the four that everybody holds in this high regard. But the one that always stuck out to me the most was Bayley.
Yep.
And the match specifically, because everybody's going to point you to the 30-minute Iron Woman match.
Yeah. Was it 30?
It was 30.
Wow.
It was
I
30.
can watch that.
But the one I'm pointing to is her match with Sasha Banks at TakeOver Brooklyn.
As you should.
When Bayley won the title, and I think that was one of those, like,
yeah,
her whole story of, like, being the fan culminating to this moment. It hit me then, and watching back today, like, trying to decide which match, watching it back again, it hit me all over again.
Right.
It was just a top 10 all-time moment.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I don't blame you.
She had that, again, kind of like Sami Zayn. I'm a sucker for a good underdog, and a sucker for just like somebody that truly you can believe. Like when she talks about how much she loves this and being a fan, you see that same light in her eyes that I see in like hours when we used to, like, we would just sit and talk wrestling for hours. Like, we still do. We just put a camera in front of it now. But I mean, you see that same passion. Like it's something you can't fake. And then her work in the ring is just so good.
Yeah. And it's
so good.
Nothing but get better since. My female surprise pick is none other than Roxanne Perez.
You know what? There's not a thing wrong with that pick.
I know there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the four that you were thinking of.
No.
Roxanne has done so much great work. She is two-time NXT Women's Champion. I'm pretty sure longest consecutive, and has been pushing on Asuka's longest single reign as well. She's been absolutely killing it. She just going from babyface champion to heel, as you said, the babyface run was just the underdog coming up. She's the shortest stacked woman in there. She's gonna bend anyone's knee to wherever they need to go, fighting Mandy Rose.
Yep.
Like you can go that run, and then you can turn around and look at her heel run where she is still trying to finish it out by beating up Bayley at this point. But the match I'm going to turn to is, don't quote me on what show it is. I'm sorry that I didn't do my research. But because I know that it has two other extremely talented women in it, it is Roxanne Perez versus Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia for the NXT Women's Championship.
I think it's absolutely the right pick.
It's the right pick. Hey everybody, super quick. This is future Alex from the current video that you're watching. It has come to my attention that Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia versus Roxanne Perez never happened in NXT, and I solemnly swear that I feel awful for that, and I could have sworn that it happened. So the match that I'm actually going to send you to is Julia versus Roxanne Perez for the same reasons that I will explain in just a second. It's just, it works.
You put her up with two of the best in the world coming out of CMLL and coming out of Stardom, and like you're truly like the blending of styles like we talked about earlier. Like you're taking like a PWG team, an ROH team, and then just like old school, and like boom, magic happens. You're taking an NXT, like I know she had indie experience before, but I really came to know her as just an NXT rising star.
Yeah.
Putting her in there with Vaquer and Julia, like, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's my female pick. And then our last male pick. I know what your pick's going to be. You're going to rant for 45 minutes. I'm going to pick my last pick. And because I thought I knew your pick, and then of course you said you were going to rant on it for 45 minutes, so I held back. I had to pick this guy because it's the exact opposite of what I thought you were going to pick. My choice is none other than Ilya Dragunov.
Yes.
Because you are going to point, not you, but I am going to point to none other than Ilya Dragunov versus Walter in the pandemic era.
One of the greatest matches of all time.
One of the greatest matches of all time. Look it up. Don't look at the ones that have the crowds in them. No. Look at the ones where the building is completely empty and every Walter chop can echo off the walls.
I've said that match is the most violent, non-death match, non-extreme rules. Like, it is the most violent, just straightforward wrestling match I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. If you want an introduction to British wrestling, look at that match. and then go look at Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate.
I think those
any
two
of their classics. So any of Ilya versus Walter and any of Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. I can go on and talk about Dragunov for hours, but we don't have time for that. So Dylan, go ahead and go on your 45-minute rant.
The greatest NXT champion of all time. And specifically, a match with the man I listed earlier, Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, takeover rival.
Yep.
They stop a championship match by referee stoppage on powerbomb number 7, and he silenced the room. What drew me immediately is like, I'm coming back into wrestling. You didn't see anybody that looked like Kevin Owens, especially on the WWE level. Like, there's guys out there, but on that level, as like I'm getting back in through WWE and NXT, you don't see anything like that. I'm sitting there as a chubby bearded dude looking at a guy on the screen who's doing stuff that I'm like, I can't do that, but that dude looks like me.
Yeah.
Watching him roll in and take Sami Zayn out, and like just being there for that championship celebration, taking Sami Zayn out after everybody comes out of the ring, playing on the apron. It was one of those moments where I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but like he's got my attention. And then he attacks John Cena on Raw, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I love him.
Yeah.
But just watching that takeover rival match is everything that I love about Kevin Owens, especially in the NXT era, because it doesn't look like a perfect wrestling match. It looks like a street fight.
Yeah. And
when he powerbombs Sami Zayn for the 5th, 6th, and 7th time, just boom, boom, over and over again, and the crowd is just silent.
Yeah.
And the ref calls for the bell, and people don't know how to feel. They're confused, and then they put the title on them, and there's an immediate pop followed by just even louder boos. And like, that is a moment, because like not a single person that walked in there was like, you know how I think it's going to end? Referee stoppage, and they're just going to hand him the title because Sami Zayn couldn't continue. Not a person walked in that building thinking that was going to happen, and the reactions you get are so visceral out of people. And I think that was just one of those things that made me look at wrestling entirely differently. He made me look at wrestling entirely differently. And I think it's probably a big reason I love it as much as I do at this point. Yeah. So, yeah, man. I could probably do 45 minutes on Owens easy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You absolutely could. And then I believe they go on and put another match on NXT TV shortly after.
Shortly after, yeah.
Because of the referee stoppage. So, yeah. Yeah, I knew you. Yeah. I figured
it's the most obvious
it was
pick.
One or the other. It was either KO, which I thought you were going to pull the card of he may have had a better run outside of NXT, because at this point they're dead even.
I think he might. I mean, he got to have a main event with Stone Cold at WrestleMania.
Right.
But if we're talking strictly NXT runs, like,
yeah,
I mean, I still think his NXT run was borderline perfect.
Oh, yeah.
From like that debut match with CJ Parker blowing his nose up and him still coming out.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the gif of a guy with crazy dreadlocks doing this, it is him just taking Kevin Owens' nose and driving it into his brain. And he still came out and did his spot later in the night.
Did the babyface celebration.
Still bandaged up.
The heel turn. Yes. No, it was.
And it made it look even better because his face is all swollen up.
Yeah.
Because his nose is shattered.
Yeah, he was pissed because he was in pain. No, I was assuming it was either going to be KO or it was going to be Walter.
Yep.
And my argument for Walter, if I chose Walter, was going to be technically his NXT run was every indie show that he did with the NXT UK title.
So the reason that I didn't put Walter in there is because I associate him with like NXT UK more so than actual NXT proper.
Right.
And that was before like the split, because Pete Dunne was at least in NXT proper a lot, and then Walter had like the bulk of that run was NXT UK, and then he would come in for takeovers, just massacre people.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, he could have easily been on that list. I mean, Samoa Joe could have been on that list.
Bobby Roode. Great NXT champion.
Yeah, fantastic. Adrian Neville, I don't think it's talked about enough. That NXT run was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Bo Dallas as an NXT champion was fantastic.
We have Asuka's women's champ.
Asuka's women's championship run. Becky Lynch.
We've already said American Alpha as a tag team. I mean, technically Enzo.
I couldn't put Enzo
Bill,
and Cass on that list, but I loved them.
I know. Technically, they got their start, and that's how they got their pop. Like, we could go on and talk NXT for
the
hours.
Undisputed Era. One of the greatest factions of all time.
I forgot.
It felt like cheating putting 4 people down as my tag team.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not gonna do it, but I'm sneaking the name in before this is over.
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't even think about it. They are the original Black and Gold, and I didn't even think to put them on the list.
There was such a wealth of talent, especially like the Black and Gold takeover era of NXT. Man, like narrowing it down to the 4 was one of these. I was like excited to do it, but then also excited for all of the people I was going to remember. And I just like, oh, now I have to go watch all of this stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even think about American Alpha until I mentioned the match and went, American Alpha. I forgot. Okay, great. And look at Chad Gable and Jason Jordan as a great producer. So anyway, we can sit here and talk NXT for hours, but that's for another time, because eventually we'll get long-form content where we just rant 24/7 up again. But until that happens, hit the subscribe button. So when it does happen, you can see it. Hit the like button, share it. We don't pay for ads and stuff, so share it. Thanks, appreciate it. If you like what you see, come back definitely in 2 weeks on Friday, because we'll have another video up.
We will.
We'll actually have a couple of videos that weekend because it's Elimination Chamber. But anyway, I've been Alex Braddock. Join me as always.
I am Dylan Gilbert.
And whether it's been a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, or good night, thank you for watching. And this has been the Victory Roll Wrestling YouTube channel.
Sorry, buddy. The Revival.